Hey guys, subscribe for daily content, and if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to share with you guys. This is the new Civivi Tranquil, which is much the same as the other formulas they've used in the past when it comes to folding knives, but there's not necessarily anything wrong with that. Civivi tends to make a really good knife, and there's always new people discovering them for the first time, so having another option isn't necessarily a bad thing. By the time you guys are watching this video, it should be available, so I'll link it right down below. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's entirely up to you. Thanks so much to Civivi for providing this knife for review. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Let's go ahead and get a measurement of this knife. Overall length of the Tranquil coming in at 8.5 inches. Not a small knife, definitely on the larger side. Blade length, depending on where you measure it, is going to come in at about 3.75. If you go all the way down to the base of the G10 scale, you could call it 4 inches. I'm going to say 3.75. Cutting edge, it's about 3.45. Not quite. It's 3.5. It's 3.5. Let's be real. How about some size comparisons? Any custom scales you see with the size comparison knives can be found down in the description under Original Goat and others. So up against the Demco 8010, or Cold Steel 8010 and the Demco 8020.5. You can see here it's about the same overall length as the 8010. It's just not quite as bulky. How about up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3? A little longer than the Spyderco PM2, not by much, but a little bit. Then last but not least, the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue. And how about the Hogue Deca? Definitely closer to the Ritter Hogue, but still a bit bigger. How's the action? It's about the same as every other Civivi I have ever handled. I will give it to him for this, though. I like these thumb studs. I always talk about how doing, kind of the steps close together and having a rounded button head at the top and having a wide thumb stud is really easy on the fingers. And that's a little teeny tiny goofy thing to talk about. But you can see here the similarities in thumb stud with the knife that I always say has like the best thumb studs ever, and that's the Ontario Rat. It's about the same. This really has nice thumb stud action, and it also has nice flipper action. The D10 is tuned to function great between the two. Not super heavy, but not light by any means. There's no double clutch or anything like that, and it's almost drop shut with plenty of control. So really, I have no issues with the action. Access to the lock bar is pretty good. There's a few teeth in there, so if you sit around and fidget with your knife a lot, you're going to notice that on your thumb, but you know, taking it out and using it when you're going about your business throughout the day, flipping it, using it, and then disengaging the lock and putting your knife back in your pocket, it'll be just fine. You won't notice it at all. How about carry profile? Thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3, it's actually fairly thin, a little thinner than the Para 3. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. Folded up, it's no different really than the Spyderco PM2. It's actually a little bit shorter than each of them, not by much, but a little bit shorter than each of them. Not quite as tall as the hump on either of those knives. Materials, what are we looking at here? We're looking at 14C28N. Of course, you have the Damascus option, but 14C28N, and then G10 and steel liners. That's kind of like the pick, right? In the premium knife world, it's titanium and M390, and in the budget knife world, we want to see, well, truthfully, there's various handle materials, but we want to see 14C28N. We just see a lot of G10 steel liners, 14C28N, right? So, but that's fine. 14C28N is like essentially the best budget knife. So, well, best is, that's very subjective. It's very, very well-rounded and therefore preferred by many people who are buying knives in this territory. So that's great. We should absolutely weigh it, and I will do that. We do have a little bit of milling in there for weight reduction. I'm honestly not even sure if you guys can see that. Can you see it? There we go. Okay. Probably helps when you don't have black in the background. The weight on this guy coming in at 4.27 ounces. Not bad at all. Considering we have 3.75 inches of blade. Not perfect, but pretty darn good. How about a hardware check. Let me get out my tools. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. There we go. Civivi's pretty good about doing T8 across the board. Let's see if that's the case here, and it is. We have T8, T8, and then T6 for the pocket clip screws, which is not that big of a deal. Very easy to take apart and put back together. As long as you have the right tools for the job, you should be good to go. Last thing to do here before we get into the meat and potatoes is simply measure the blade stock thickness. And we are not in the right... There we go. So blade stock thickness is coming in at about 115 thousandths on the thinner side. Pretty normal for Civivi. I think that works. All right, meat and potatoes. We have a handle profile that is very, very much used. Not just in terms of Civivi knives, and believe me, they love this handle profile, but knives in general. It's a handle profile we see a lot because it works. It's very comfortable. The only thing that bothers me is, of course, the clip, because the bill is too high. We've talked about this a lot. I am definitely beating a dead horse at this point. The clip is fine, it's functional, but man, I don't like that bill. I don't like how aggressive it is, and I can definitely feel it in my hand there. Outside of that, we have peel ply textured G10 scales that have been nicely chamfered. A few lines there just for some aesthetic spice, I guess, right? They're not really doing anything, but overall, ergonomics are good, especially in the choked up position. We have some jimping to complement the index finger position. It's a good looking knife, right? I mean, it looks like a number of other Civivi. I mean, honestly, there's probably 8 or 9 Civivi knives that look almost identical to this. I wouldn't be surprised if there is another knife that's like 95%, right? But it's a good looking knife. It's a safe aesthetic. And a lot of people are going to enjoy that, because the reason people buy Civivi knives is because they make straightforward utilitarian cutting tools that look good in a simple way and get the job done. And if you lose it or you break it, well, you know, you're not out, you know, very much money. I mean, it's still, you know, this is a $63 knife, and $63 is a decent amount of money, right? It's not the amount of money you'd want to just throw into the air, certainly, but it would be different than losing like an XM18, right? So anyways, that's kind of what people expect. And so I don't know if I want to expect too much more from the aesthetic. I like it when Civivi mixes it up. And the reason I'm not being hard on them for this knife is because they have been mixing it up lately. They have been creating models that are different from their usual walk in the park, right? So I think it's perfectly fine that they're continuing to, you know, walk through this park, and at the same time, take the scenic route periodically. That was a good analogy, and I stumbled through it, but we're going to leave it in there and not edit it, right? Because I'm, you know, truthfully, just not that cool. Let's go ahead and talk about the blade here. We have, I'm going to call this a clip point. You could call it a modified drop point or whatever the heck you want to call it. There's the tip. There's the swedge. This is the general shape that it is, so call it whatever you want. We have a little bit of a flat here that carries out maybe 55% the length of the blade. Honestly, it does get very thin down at the edge, and it looks good. As far as a simple satin finish blade goes, right, one that is obviously utilitarian in nature, this is just a good EDC blade. It's a large blade, right? So if you have, I don't know, if you're going to be cutting a lot of dense material for a long period of time, this is exactly the type of knife I'd want to use for that. Truthfully, if I was going to break down cardboard boxes and they were all like refrigerator boxes and super thick, yeah, this is the type of knife that I'd want, right? 14C28N goes dull? Well, it's going to be pretty easy to strop it back up. If you didn't know, 14C28N is certainly not going to win any awards in the edge retention department, but it's okay. It's super easy to touch up. It's stainless. It's pretty darn tough, right? I mean, it's really, I can't complain about it. That's why so many people like it, right? This has a little bit of a metallic, not really a twang, but it's just obvious like metal on metal. It sounds really good when you deploy it. It also feels really good to deploy it, not only with the reverse flick, but with the thumb flick as well. It's just good. I mean, everything that should be in place is in place with no extra embellishment. They also remembered that left-handed people exist and offered a spot for lefties to mount the pocket clip, which is great because truthfully, these knives are not super difficult to manipulate with your left hand. As you can see, I'm displaying here. Oh, missed that left-handed reverse flick. I'm sorry, you guys don't deserve to, you know, have that type of amateurness bestowed upon you visually. Sorry. I'm right-handed, sorry. But I like it when they, cater to left-handed people. So that's great, right? Can almost choke down that Loch Ness Monster clip for the fact that they put it on the other side. Civivi does a pretty good job with that. Hey, they even put a little lanyard standoff there for people who like lanyards, so that's really nice. In and out of the pocket should be pretty easy. I mean, this is a medium light peel ply texturing, so over time it's obviously going to fray your pants, but truthfully it won't be that big of a deal. You will only every now and then have to fight it because they decided to put a straight bill on it instead of just cutting it off right here on the ramp. So sometimes those straight bills mash into your pocket seam and then you have to hold the pocket and then put the knife in rather than just slipping the knife into your pocket. I know that's pretty nitpicky, but the more you carry a knife, the more that you notice stuff like that. And I get real nitpicky about the clips. So that's going to be the case there, but it is not a deal breaker. We have the stop pin located in its usual position, a little bit of shouldering on the blade, which is nice. No blade play up, down, left, or right. This does run on bearings. I think I mentioned that, maybe I didn't. No lock stick, no double clutch, no pivot lash. Extremely consistent in this area here, and a really nice detent. I'm gonna let you guys look at that again. That's what we want to see. And we have absolutely perfect centering with no detent lash. The Tranquil is a good knife. It's 63 bucks. There are companies out there using these materials and putting together similar knives for a little bit less. Civivi always has that kind of like very refined, crisp feeling. So while they're not doing anything ultra special here, I also really can't complain about seeing 14C28N under 70 bucks on a really nice, high quality, somewhat large EDC folding knife. If you don't have to be into giant knives to like this, right? Every now and then I get a handful of people who say a knife at 8.5 inches is too big for EDC. Okay, there, guy, calm down. It's not the freaking Cold Steel 4 Max. Like, just why don't you settle down there? No, yeah, this is fine. I mean, honestly, folded up, it's pretty darn compact. It's not going to be a hard knife to carry. If you like knives that are a little bit on the larger side and you're on a budget, well, this is a heck of a choice. Really, really nice. Honestly, great utilitarian blade shapes, especially if you're into knives that just don't have a lot of extra for no reason. This knife does not have the extra for no reason. It's purpose built, even if it does look like a lot of the other Civivi knives. I mean, heck, while you're there, if you want to check this knife out with a link, take a look at the rest of Civivi's line because for the most part, it's pretty darn good. This knife is recommendable and it's also a cheap knife that I like. So it's going to go on both playlists. I recommend this knife. I think you'll like it. That's going to be pretty much it from me today, guys. Please make sure to check out my Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.